Hello YouTube. A lot of you seem to enjoy my video settings breakdown of the Vivo X100 Pro, and I've just had another heavy hitter arrive in the camera department, and that's the new Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. So I just thought I'd make a quick video to go through all the video options available to you on the new phone. Just like with the last video, this isn't a review and it's not a showcase of the camera capabilities either, but I will be comparing the X100 Pro to the S24 Ultra in an upcoming video, so hit subscribe if you want to see that. This video is just designed to tell you things like which lenses can shoot in 8K, which ones will let you do slow motion, etc. So we're going to go through everything, and without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, starting with the front-facing camera, which on this phone is a 12 megapixel sensor with an f2.2 aperture, and it does have autofocus, which is cool to see because it's still very rare on modern flagships. In this mode, you can shoot at up to 4K 60 frames per second, but if you are shooting in 4K, you don't get the filters and the beauty mode. If you drop it down to full HD, you can put skin smoothing on, make yourself look all weird and I don't know, like a doll. The filters are the more useful thing. You can quickly change up the look of your video, which is cool, but it's a shame that you don't get it at 4K. In terms of aspect ratio, you can do square format 1:1. You can do full screen, which I don't know what that ratio is. A little bit taller than 21:9, I assume. Or 16:9, which is what most people are realistically going to be using. You also have this button up here called auto frame, which really you need to be on a tripod for it to make any sense. But this will automatically zoom in and try and follow you as you move about the frame. If I hold it further away, I don't know, it looks a bit weird when you're hand holding it. But it's essentially like the thing that Sony vlogging cameras do. So if you stick your phone on a tripod and you walk away from the camera, it will zoom in with you, which could be quite useful. You also have additional settings in here, which we will cover later on because it's the same across most modes. You also have portrait video mode, which as you can see has blurred out my background by default. But if you want it more blurry, the big circle mode makes massive bokeh balls for you. Looks a bit insane, but it could work in certain situations. There's like a color isolation mode, which is actually quite cool and works really well. My cat's screaming, sorry if you can hear that. There's a glitch mode, which is another cool effect where you look normal, but the background goes into a cool glitchy mode. In this mode, you can shoot at 4K 30 or 1080p 30, and that's your lot. And there's also skin smoothing if you use that kind of thing. We also have this quite interesting mode called Dual Rec, which allows you to access any of the cameras, 2 of them at a time, including the selfie camera, obviously. It could be useful if you're trying to demonstrate something, like you want to be on screen while you're showing what you're filming. But yeah, it's not something I use very often, but it is cool. And you can switch the layout. So you can have split view or a picture-in-picture, depending on what kind of thing you're filming. You've got the option to save 2 separate files, one from each camera, or save the combined video. You can shoot at up to 4K 30 or 1080p 30, and that's dual rec mode. Single take's a pretty unique setting that you take one video clip and it will convert it into 9 little short form things like a still image, a like slideshow, a boomerang effect. It's the idea is you take one video and it gives you a bunch of options to post on social media. Again, this isn't one I'm too fond of but it is there if you need it, and obviously it works on the selfie camera. There's also AR zone, which is another kind of crazy gimmicky thing, but you can draw on your face. If I give myself some big eyebrows and a goatee, and it sticks to your face. It's a bit of fun, but not something that you'll be using for any kind of serious video work. You can actually shoot slow motion on the front-facing camera as well, which is kind of cool. Not many situations where I need slow-mo on the front-facing camera, but if you want to shake your cheeks about and see them wobble in slow-mo, you can do that here. Same goes for Hyperlapse. That works on the front-facing camera too. You get all the same settings to choose from in Hyperlapse, but it's on the front-facing camera. Again, not that useful for me, might be useful for you. And finally, the front-facing camera also works in Pro Video mode. We'll go through all these settings when we look at the rear cameras, but it's cool that it works on the selfie camera. It didn't on the X100 Pro, so yeah. Let's get into the rear cameras and see what they can do. Alright, so moving on to the rear cameras. You've got 4 physical lenses to choose between. You've got the 0.6 ultra wide, which is a 12 megapixel sensor. The main camera, which is obviously the 200 megapixel sensor. The 10 megapixel 3x telephoto. The brand new 50 megapixel 5x telephoto. And then the others are all digital crops. So the 10x is a digital crop of the 5x sensor, and all these little in-between numbers are digital crops of other sensors. You can go up to 20x maximum in video mode, but you probably don't really want to be going over 10x in most situations. In terms of resolution, you can shoot at up to 8K 30, but you can only do that on the main sensor or the new 5x telephoto. And it won't let you zoom any further. I just tried there and it shot me back into photo mode. Otherwise, you can shoot in 4K 60 on every single lens, as well as the digital ones. And in full HD, you can also do 60, and in standard HD, you're limited to 30. Just like on the selfie camera, if you want to use the filters or beauty mode, then you have to be in full HD, not 4K. Yep. And you've got all your filters here. Actually, it does not look like we have a beauty mode on the rear cameras. Over here you've got super steady mode. So if you want a really nice panning smooth shot, you can enable that. But it will only let you use the ultra wide or the main sensor, and it will drop you down to QHD, but you can do 60 frames a second. The aspect ratio options are the exact same on the rear, so you can do square format, full screen, or 16:9. You've also got auto framing. Oh, and I can demonstrate it better now on a tripod. So you see how it zoomed into my subject there. And I could just tap which subject I want, and it zooms on in. If I move the tripod about, it'll try and keep them in the frame as best it can. We're going to Pro Video next. Here you can take control of all your manual settings. So you've got ISO sensitivity, shutter speed, EV compensation, focus mode, and manual focus if you want it. And it looks like when you turn manual focus on, focus peaking is enabled by default. You've also got your white balance, different microphone options, including Bluetooth mics and wired USB mics. I have tried this with the DJI Mic 2 and it does pair up fine. It works absolutely great. So that's a nice little bonus over the Vivo X100 Pro. And you've got a zoom rocker control here. So if you want a slightly different way to control your zoom level, you can access that in your manual settings. In Pro mode, it unlocks 24 frames per second as well as 120 frames per second for slow motion, and you can access them in full HD and 4K, and 8K gets 24 frames per second as well as 30. I should have mentioned when I was talking about the selfie camera, but the selfie camera can record in 24 frames per second as well when you're in pro mode. In terms of aspect ratio, you get the same options, but you also get 21:9. And if you switch down to full HD, you get some additional options to change the look of your image. You can change the saturation, the shadow levels, the highlights, and the contrast level. Let's take a look at the full settings menu in this mode, because I think it'll have the most things enabled in Pro video mode. A lot of these will only relate to photos and not videos. And as you can see here, there's a section for selfies, which obviously will only apply to the front camera. Auto FPS is grayed out here, but it does apply to the normal video mode. When you're in low light conditions, it will switch down from 30 FPS to 24 FPS automatically. I turn it off because that's quite annoying when you're trying to edit your videos and the frame rate isn't what you're expecting. But if you're just going to be editing it on your phone or chucking things straight on Instagram, it could be better just to let a bit more light in when it's dark. You can toggle video stabilization off entirely, but I don't think most people would want to do that. You have video format options. You can choose whether to display your videos in HDR10+ or not. High bitrate, obviously the higher your bitrate, the larger your file sizes are going to be, but the better your videos are going to look, so I would toggle that on. Microphone zoom, it's grayed out in pro mode, but yeah, this will try and match the microphone to the zoom level of your camera. For me, that's just too much processing. I think it sounds a bit weird, so yeah, I'd keep that turned off. And 360 audio recording could be cool depending on what headphones you have. It tries to take a binaural recording if your headphones have got multiple microphones on them. Tracking autofocus is a mode where when you tap on a subject, it will try and keep that subject in focus even if they move to a different part of the frame. It's disabled by default, but you might want that enabled. Grid lines gives you a rule of thirds lines. Location tags are mainly for you. When it's in your gallery, you can filter videos by location. Shooting methods, there's a few interesting ones. I had to turn these off when I was filming on the front-facing camera because I kept holding my hand up and it would start recording automatically. That's the show palm setting at the bottom. But you can also control what your volume buttons do. You can use them as a zoom rocker, which is quite cool, and I don't see that on most phones. Yeah, that's most of the settings that matter for video. Otherwise, we have portrait video, just like we saw on the rear camera. This time around, you can use the main sensor or a 2x crop of the main sensor. It's struggling here without a human subject, but it is applying background blur. No, it's not going to work without a human. You need a human for the effects to work. But anyway, in this mode, you've got 4K 30 and Full HD 30, just like you did on the selfie camera. You've got the same dual rec and single take modes. Don't really need to go through those again. Obviously you can do a hyperlapse. In hyperlapse mode, you can either use the ultra wide, the main camera, or the 3x telephoto. And strangely, the new 5x telephoto is not enabled. With the top left icon, you can change the speed of your recording. Next one down is the duration. By default, it'll automatically choose those based on how long your clip is. And you've got 4K and Full HD resolution to choose from. For slow motion, it's going to be the same as Pro mode. 4K 120 is the max, and it actually looks really good on this camera. But if you go to Full HD, you can do 240, which looks a little less good, but nice to have if you need some extra slow motion. And slow motion only seems to be working on the main sensor. It's not letting me zoom in or out. But interestingly, if you go into Pro mode, you can actually do 4K 120 on the ultra wide if you want to, as well as the wide. So yeah, if you're going to use the main sensor, you can use slow-mo mode. But if you really want to use the ultra wide, then you probably want to go into pro mode. I believe the rest are photo focused, except for things like AR zone, where it goes to the selfie camera. But that's not going to be the kind of thing that most video enthusiasts are going to care about. That's more a bit of fun. So I think that is all the video modes on the new Galaxy S24 Ultra. So that's about it for this one. I hope you found it useful. Hit subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and like I said, I've got some camera comparisons coming up soon. So yeah, catch you in the next one. Toodles.